see here. What's up, Tom, Nerd, Renzo? Surprise, surprise. What's happening? What's up, Brett? Good to see you. I am doing very well. Peter, how are you? Deb, everyone, Zach, Frank, good to see everybody. Air Guitar, Jeff, Roberto. Been working all day. Working on a video. I did a 2-hour interview with Misha from Pillitteri. For those of you that know who Pillitteri is, I'm doing a What Makes This Song Great tomorrow. The song is incredibly involved that I'm doing. It's probably the most it's no without question the most complex song I've done by far. No comparison on any of these What Makes This Song Great. It's really, really involved. A lot of lines, some real, very, very hard guitar parts to play and stuff like that. Misha Mansour, exactly. He's a great guy, man. We had a really good time talking. It's so I've been working on the song. They're a progressive metal band. People call it gent, but he wouldn't call it that. I think people that play that kind of music, progressive metal music, they call it progressive metal music. Is production on something like that harder? I think it's harder. Some of the things are really, some of the harmonies are very complex. The guitar tones, there's some lines that are just all over the place. This is similar to Meshuggah, Roberto, but this is a little bit. This particular tune is it's more melodic than Meshuggah in a way. It is more melodic. It's a more lush. Some of the kind of chords that they're using and things like that. It's a drop C tuning that they play in, and they've got some beautiful, beautiful voicings that you guys will totally dig. And in talking to them with there's keyboards hidden in the arrangement that have some pretty intricate lines to them. I think you guys will like it. I really, really enjoyed kind of going through it with him. And I shouldn't have done it on a split screen with him when I was interviewing him about it, because you can't see his guitar all the time. But I'm not sure how much I'm going to intersperse those things in there. But it's fun to intersperse those things of having him in the video. Really cool. So Cass, let's see, ZZ Top, What Makes a Song Great? Yeah. How to get that Andy Wallace signature chorus phase or Symphonic 15 using a plugin in the box? Legends. Now that's a good question. What's up, Mark? I had a hard time mimicking it. I have what's up, Monty? I have the actual box. I have an SPX 90 marked or version 2. SB, what's up? And I'll tell you why I bought the S2. What's so funny is that this is a Rick detective thing. I'll tell you this story. So it just occurred to me. So everybody back in the 90s, early 2000s were wondering, how does Andy Wallace get that incredible, like his mixes? How does he get that bass sound, all this stuff? Now, I knew that he used the SPX 90 because I did a session in LA years ago with a guy that assisted him, and I asked him, yes, it's the effects rack, Renzo. And I asked him, I says, how does he get the bass sound? And he goes, oh yeah, SPX 90 program 15. And I knew what it was. I said, you mean symphonic? He said, yeah. And I said, you mean just the regular preset? He said, of course. Um, so, anyways, so with the internet, so Andy used to work out of this place called Soundtracks in New York City. And everybody would argue on gear sluts and stuff like that. I never bring up that website here, but I'll say it here. Everybody would argue about that on there, and they'd have these completely cockamamie things about what he was using, right? I heard he used this, and he overdrove that and this, like absurd things that you would never do, that people don't do. It's never as weird as you think it is, right? So you go on their web. I said, I was talking to somebody. I said, listen, go on the website at Soundtracks. And they said, okay. I said, look at the gear list for he was in Studio G, was his room, his SSL. And they have this, and in the rack, they showed all the rack gear. And there's very few things. PCM 70, Lexicon 480L, a Yamaha SPX 90 version 2. A couple, Drummer gates, 902 gates that had ducking on them, like old school gates. But there's, I think, 6 of those, a pair of 1073s, nothing that he would use. Those things he would use. But he used very little outboard gear, almost none. And the fact that they have the SPX 90 is like, all you got to do is go and look at the place the guy mixes out of, and look what's in the rack in the studio, because all studios post pictures and their gear list. Okay, so on Renzo, this is interesting. So when Andy Wallace did the mix with the Masters, he did a song, an Avenged Sevenfold song he did for a Mix with the Masters mix thing. And they didn't have any of the gear. He wasn't working in the same console. They had an SPX 90 that was too noisy. And I know this because one of my friends went to the Mix with the Masters with him the day before. He did a Mix with the Masters, and then he mixed the song the day after, this Periphery song. But he used a Roland Dimension D chorus for his bass because they didn't have it there. And he didn't use his normal snare sample. He didn't use his normal kick sample. He used 2 different samples because he didn't use them because he knew that people would scarf them right off the video, because it was all off the console when he was doing the mix. So he didn't really he didn't give away any of his real secrets there, which is pretty funny because here he is doing this Mix with the Masters. What's up, Helium? Thing where he's showing people how he mixes, but yet the bass sound that he did and and his kick and snare sample that he uses, he didn't use those. So it's fascinating. But all the Yamaha reverbs, I want to say the Rev 7, all the Yamaha reverbs at the time had that program 15. But the SPX 90 he just used on the bass to make it in stereo and to give it side-to-side movement. If you listen to his bass tones, they were always in stereo. If you bring up a tune, I'll show you here. Let's say you had a tune like this. Let me think here. Let's see here. Let me open up Spotify. There's a tune without opening a session of his. Okay, let's see here. This is fascinating because this is where detective work, to become really great at mixing and engineering. If you have a Rev 100, it's probably on there, Monty. They had the program. It's called Symphonic. It was on all the Yamaha units, the same program. So you don't have to go back and get the exact same one. So if you go to this record here, Wonder What's Next, it's a Chevelle record, and there's a song on it, just thought of this, called Evening with Diablo. An Evening with Diablo that starts with the bass. Okay, I'm going to play it for you. And you can hear, listen for the chorus. A symphonic is like a pitch change. Okay, it's that's kind of what the thing is. But listen to the bass here. This is bass tone. It's soloed here. So listen. Okay, now, come on. How can you not tell that doesn't have that's not in stereo? He does it to give side to side movement. Listen to it. It's got like a chorus on it, right? Listen. Notice how it's really snapping the compressor too? It's really compressed. It probably was compressed like that in tracking, but he may be really hitting it on the SSL. What's up, Roberta? Listen again. It creates excitement in the mix, Mark. Exactly. It's a thick chorus with panning, so it's moved between the speakers. It makes the bass so that it doesn't sit there and act so it's not static. Okay, and it's a picked bass, Brett. That's right. So but he uses it with everything. Jeff Buckley, if you listen to Jeff Buckley, the bass sounds on it, that's how he always mixes. On the bass, he always puts that chorus. It doesn't matter what band it is, whether it's, Nirvana or anything. Vitamir, sorry about your breakup, but you're welcome. And you're welcome, I should say. Not but you're welcome, and you're welcome. Pat says it seems like the overtones are significant as well. Yeah, it gives, I always thought that it just gives movement. I love the sound of the bass. I mean, listen to it again. It's not a chorus pedal, Miles. It's a rack mount Yamaha SPX 90 Program 15, which is called Symphonic. It's like a pitch change. It has, it's like a chorus. It's a chorusing or a flange. It kind of moves between the two speakers. You can have it. It creates depth in the bass. That's why it's called Symphonic. If you think of, I'm not sure that he used it on Come As You Are. He used it on the bass on Nevermind because he mixed Nevermind. But you can hear it it sounds like on some of the vocals on Nevermind, he's blends it in on different things. We can't play that, Renzo. I don't know what that is, but this is really and I'll play it. This is interesting. So listen. Okay, I'll give you another example of him using it. So listen to the. No, it's the amp. It is probably just the DI, along with that really compressed. We're talking about Andy Wallace, Harry. It's the DI really compressed on the SSL. He doesn't use any outboard compression. He may use on the mix bus. I think on his G series, he used an Allen Smart C2. Wood by Allison Chains. That was done by Dave Jordan, and that's got a very heavy flange on it. Okay. So. Now listen to this. Listen to the kick and snare when this comes in. Listen. Really compressed. Okay, so he uses the snare, the sample that triggers the reverbs. The snare sample also has like a white noise sound on it. All right. And he heavily gates the actual sample. I explained this in my Andy Wallace video, but I'll tell you here. So he heavily gates the sample and then puts this, or heavily gates the actual real snare, but it's still in there. And then he blends in this this sample that has, with reverb on it, but the sample also has a white noise sound after it. I have it. I don't have it on my computer here, but I have the sample, and I have the kick sample. If you listen to this, I'll give you another example. Another record he mixed. This is a great sounding record. This is Linkin Park thing. He mixed the first two records, but the second record, Meteora, is a great record. It sounds incredible. His mix is great. So there's a song on here called "Easier to Run," and I love this. This is a great song. Listen to the bass on this song. It's the same thing. It's a different band, right? Listen to the kick and snare sample on this.
Something has been taken from deep inside of me. A secret I've kept locked away, no one can ever see.
You hear the bass? You hear the chorusing on the bass again? He did Hybrid Theory as well. Listen to the bass.
Inside of me, a secret I've kept locked away, no one can ever see. Been so deep they never show.
Hear the snare and kick? That's the same kick and snare sound, right?
They never go away, like moving pictures in my head for years and years they've played.
So that, once again, is that sound. But if you listen to Jeff Buckley, I'll play Jeff Buckley here. This might get blocked, but this is actually good. Buckley. If you play Grace, right? Let's see here. Hold on. Jeff Buckley, here we go. So same thing. Listen to the bass sound. Listen to the snare. Hold on. Let me find it. Man, they have so many different versions of this record. Okay, here we go. Grace. Or Last Goodbye. Listen. Notice the snare sound is similar. Listen to the bass. If you really listen close, it has that chorus sound on it. Let's try a different song, actually. There we go. Listen to the bass. You hear the chorusing on the bass if you listen really carefully, right? It's on all these songs. Let's see here.
Oh, that was so
Bass there. But if you go to the record with the song I like, Vancouver, from where is it here? Yeah, Vancouver. Listen to the bass on here. It's clearer. Listen to the bass here. Notice the snare sound? It's the same snare as in Linkin Park and Chevelle, and it's the same snare. It's Successful techniques used across genres prove their validity. Very well put, Mark. You don't notice these things unless you're somebody like me that is unbelievably, that marvels. His mixes are so punchy and clean. This is beautiful. The snare sounds amazing on this. Listen to the kick drum, how puffy it is. It just moves air, and it's not clicky. It's got a lot of 2K, but that's a sample on the snare there. That's the real snare, but with a sample, mainly the sample. The bass is all over the place, but you can hear it. You can hear all the notes. For some reason, the chorusing effect from the SPX 90 makes it easy to hear distinguish the bass lines, especially when they're busy. Listen some more. Why do you think I did not on this like I kissed you? Everything in this mix is beautiful. There's only 2 guitars. This was almost like a demo, you know? And he just took this thing and made it sound amazing. Lines of escape in my mind. Also, Andy's attention to detail with the vocal tone. His effects that he uses on the vocals are always so tasteful. I mean, this is a guy that that is in his 70s now, you know? He's in his early 70s, and he was in his, you know, back in the night, was he in 50s or almost 60 at the time? He was 60 years old when he was doing all those big heavy records, when he was doing, you know, Chevelle and Linkin Park and all that stuff. He was in his 60s. He was a guy in his 60s that was born in the 40s or whenever, the 30s, whenever he was born, creating a sound, the 40s, creating the sound for teenagers with bands they liked, which is really amazing. But the vocals on this, listen to the bass right here in this section, okay, because it's real clear. You can really hear, listen, you can hear the chorus in the bass. Listen. It's not even subtle. When you're listening to it, you're like, oh man, I can totally hear it. This isn't like, you know, okay, this is a total aside. When I was interviewing Misha today, or talking to him about the guitar player from Periphery, he said, I watched your Led Zeppelin video, the one with the drum sound from When the Levee Breaks. And I said, all right, I want you to go on record here, Misha. And he's like, of course it's an echo. It's absurd. How could it, you know? He said, when I first started playing guitar, I knew that was an echo. You know, I was like, all you gotta do is use a digital delay one time and you know. Anyways, but this it's obvious, right? The chorus on the bass there, it's more like a pitch change. Is there a pedal that gets something close to program 15? I don't think so, no. No, I'll tell you how I use it too. Because I discovered this way back when the beginning of my, yes, you're right, Mark. He has great spacing across the instruments. Always, every part is so tastefully done. There's nothing on the Eventide that sounds like it. On the H3000, they used to have a plug-in back in the day. I don't even know if they make it anymore, but the Eventide had there was a sound that I used, a pitch change sound that could kind of equal it, but it doesn't. What I did is I bought one on eBay for $100, and I would just send the bass through that, and I would record it to a stereo track in Pro Tools, and then I would blend it in however I wanted to. If you want to put a high-pass filter on it, whatever, just do that. I'm talking about Andy Wallace, not Andy Johns, John. I was talking about Andy Johns for a second. Don't get confused there. Roberta, you don't know what a noise gate is? It just shuts down the sound, makes it something go silent when you have a buzz in your guitar, gets rid of it. But even stuff like let me think here. What's another record that he mixed? Andy mixed. Right here. A Perfect Circle. He mixed 13th Step. 13th Step. Let me see here. Okay, which is one of my favorite records. I love this record. There's a tune, Weak and Powerless, that I love. Listen to the bass on this. So Harry, I blended the symphonic bass, not in parallel. I just put up the track. I'd have the DI track in there. Andy did not mix Judith. Alan Mulder did, I believe, mixed the first record. But Andy mixed hold on, let me get, why is this not the right record here? 13th Step. Andy mixed 13th Step. So this, listen to the bass on here. Weak and Powerless has a bass right out in front. I was trying to think of another song that has a bass out front so you can hear it. But that's how I would do. So I just would mix in. I'd have that SPX 90 track, and I would do whatever I would with the DI bass. It depends on what it sounds like. I get the bass sounding like it would sound with the compression where I wanted it in the mix. Then I would send it through the SPX 90 already with its effect, with its EQ and compression on it. Bring that sound back in just like you're on a console and commit to it. Okay, so here, listen to Weak and Powerless. Listen to the bass. You can hear the chorusing, right? That's the same bass tone again. I mean, it's a different sounding bass, but you can hear that chorus. Now the bass is playing chords. He's playing chords on the bass, but you can really hear it because I was trying to think, what is another song that has a solo bass out front that Andy Wallace mixed? Again. Now, the snare sound is different on this one, but the kick sound is exactly the same as those other records.
Tilling my own grave to keep me level. Jamming another dragon down the hole. Digging to the rhythm and the echo of a solitary silent one that pushes me along and leaves me so
Bass, drums. That is so fat and clear. That mix is so, it's ridiculous. Andy Wallace has such an ear for this. I mean, that is not a snare sample. That sounds like the real snare there, but that's a kick sample for sure. Listen how steady the kick drum is. Listen to how fat the low end is because of the kick. Listen.
Someone feed the monkey while I
I'll give you another example. This another thing Andy Wallace mixed. This is a Puddle of Mud song. Hate the band, but this mix is amazing. Listen to the kick and snare. Listen to the bass here. Listen. Same snare sound. Listen to the bass now.
Everything's so blurry and everyone's so fake.
It's obvious when you hear that, right? You hear that bass is super wide and sounds fat, right? Listen again.
Everything's so blurry and everyone's so fake.
Okay, so there it is once again. I mean, Andy Wallace mixed hundreds and hundreds, probably 500 records over the course of about 25 years. I'll play another one where you can hear the chorus. He did all the heavy bands. What is the band? He did the first record. Stained. This. Listen to the bass on this. Listen to the snare. Oh, I'll tell you a little story about this. I better not tell the story about this. I heard this from about the way this was tracked, but listen to the mix of this. Okay, so once again, listen to the bass sound. This is Stained. Listen. You'll hear the chorus.
It's been a while since I could hold my head up high, and it's been a while since I first saw you. And it's been a while since I can.
Once again, you hear the chorusing, right? The bass isn't out front, Pat. The bass is sitting right in the mix. That thing will sound good on any on the radio. All of his mixes have great stereo imaging because the bass is in stereo. Puddle of Stained. Let me think here. I mean, there's so many records. My God, he mixed a million. Let's see. I'll give you another one. This is at the drive-in. Here's another one that he mixed. Listen to the bass again.
Yes, this is the campaign slithered in trails in the cargo bay. A new turd is the bassnet's hollow vacuum choppy oxygen.
The chorusing and the bass is so close there. Right? I mean, it's so clear that it's so obvious. Listen again. I'll play it again. Listen to the bass.
Yes, this is the campaign slithered in trails in the cargo bay.
Subi, is the SPX bass parallel with a clean mono bass? So the SPX 90 is a mono input effects machine. I believe it's mono input. I'd have to walk in the other room with a stereo out. So he's simply got, with most of these, he's just using the DI. A lot of times they'd come with the amps, but it sounds like he uses the DI. So he's just got the single track, the single, you know, he doesn't use a lot of outboard gear, almost none. So there's no Sans amp or anything on the bass. The bass is not Andre. So the bass is a single track with a chorusing effect on it. That's why it sounds like that. The Symphonic is not only on version 2. The Symphonic is on many Yamaha reverb machines. The Rev 7, the... I've got it probably on 3 different things in my control room. You can buy them for $100 right now. But listen on the high notes of the bass. It's really easy, clear to hear.
Turn is a bass, hollow vacuum, chop the oxygen tanks. They hibernate, but how they kiss the ground, pucker up and kiss the asphalt now.
You can hear it on those. It's on the. You can hear the stereo imaging on all that stuff. So, this is something that, you know, I don't talk about this stuff a lot, but this is how's it different from chorus pedal from the chorus in a rack? Because it's not really a chorus on that thing, I don't think. This is more like a come on, somebody do some research on this. The chorus is made with the SPX 90, correct? But it's not really a chorus. It's like a pitch change, or maybe like a flange or something. I got to see what I got to look at the thing. It's got I want to say it's got a few cents. It's got modulation on it because you can control the speed of it. You have a cheapest SPX 90 is $150 now. So the thing that can go wrong with the SPX 90s is it has a battery in it that can go bad, and sometimes you have to rebuild the power supply. I had one that went bad, and I gave it to my friend Dan, my buddy Dan, that made this great DI back here. See that metal DI right there? And Dan fixed the power supply on it, and he just kept it. I said, you can have it, you can fix it, do whatever, and he fixed it, and he uses it. Do I think he high passes the bass into the SPX? No. Anytime that you think something, Steve, that is something a little bit too tricky, it's never that, it's never something weird. So, who is this guy here? Had to break out the band hammer. When am I going to write an engineering book? Rage Against the Machine, you can hear the bass on that, on the records he mixed, the first 2 records. This is gold here. This is all secret stuff here. Nobody goes back and watches my old videos. Word on the street with 2 additional voices, 1/8 cents. Yeah, it's a pitch change. That's what I was saying. Is that actually right, Miles? It's patch 23, which is 2 different additional voices. No, it's not patch 23. It's patch 15. There is no word on the street. You guys do go back and watch them? It's on page 13 of the manual. What, it talks about that, Mark? About that program? Is there a better unit? I don't know. Just look it up. I mean, there's, you know, you can. My production videos nobody watched back when I made them back at the beginning of my channel, and I said oh, I guess those production videos don't work. You watched all of them, Monty? Okay, so let's listen to a little Rage here. Love Rage. People of the Sun, listen to the bass again. Listen to the snare. Listen.
People come up. Yeah.
You hear that small reverb on the kick? And there's a snare, there's a sample on the snare. He's riding the snare up and down. So when he's doing the roll, the stick drag roll, it's in, then the snare comes in. But listen to the snare.
Turn the bass up on this one. Check it. Since 1516, minds attacked and overseen. That crawler makes the room with this empty tree. With their borders and boots on top of us, pulling out on the floor of the top.
And then he mixed this record too, the first record. The snare sounds phenomenal. I love it. You can hear the chorus on the bass right there. Any of the stuff that you read in Andy's interviews, though, he doesn't say what he's doing in it. So this is why I do these. This is why I talk so much about the production on my What Makes This Song Great videos, because it's a way that I can talk about about how about the things that nobody talks about. There's 4 different pitch change programs. Well, number 15 is the one, symphonic. And they have symphonic on a lot of different stuff. The bass part in Jeremy is a 12-string Hamer bass. That's why it sounds like that. Throws him off the trail. That's right. It does throw them off the trail. The manual's available online. Well, there you go. Those are the things why we're here. Yeah, this stuff is really, I find it fascinating. You want to know what I found so interesting about production is the production. I like the songwriting as a musician and as a songwriter. I like the songwriting part, and I love great songs, but I love production, even if it's crappy tunes. You want to know who else? We talked about the Chainsmokers song that everybody was bashing me about, which I don't care, which I thought was funny, but was Misha, because he's a producer. Misha from Periphery. See, producers love stuff like that. People that do this for a living, or that, they listen to songs, they hear something completely different. People hear, oh, it sounds cheesy, it's blah blah blah. No, they're not. We're not listening for the. We're not listening to the same thing at all. Let's see here. The people who talk about how songs are made without talking about this stuff, the way you do, is discussing. What I know, and people don't want to give out the secrets, but there are no secrets on this channel. You guys know that, right? D Noodles. We know what an SPX 90 is. I think most people know what it is. What do I think of the one headlight snare? Well, that snare is that's a real snare on that, and I think that was engineered by. I know who it was engineered by. Did Andy mix that? I'm not sure if he did. That was tracked by a guy who's a great mixer. Oh boy, and I know the guy too. Bulb. Frank, you know Bulb, you know his nickname. Wow, it's amazing. Except for the Beato auditors separate. Randy Staub. Randy Staub is not secretive at all. He told me everything he does. He was awesome. Gave me his samples, everything, when I worked with him. He was unbelievable. Okay, pitch change programs A&D permit the application of feedback. I got produce from manual. Is that your course like effect? Is that what it says? D Noodles for that? Anyone flip the phase on a double tracked melody for if you have if anything's double tracked, it doesn't matter if you flip the phase. Phase only matters when you're recording the same source with multiple inputs, multiple microphones or an amp and a DI. That's the only time phase ever comes into it. It's got to be the same performance. Otherwise the phase doesn't have anything to do with it. It wouldn't sound, you wouldn't even notice it. You can control pitch and sense, very coarse like. You showed other examples of that on other videos. Yeah. Tom Lord engineered one headlight. Is that right? Because different people worked on that record because it was T-Bone Burnett production. Even if I had all of Andy's tricks, his mixes would still sound better. That is absolutely right, Steve, because you can't steal someone's taste. You can have every idea that someone does. You can be Andy's assistant that worked with him, Steve. What's his name? His assistant for years. Oh man, he worked with Andy every day on everything, and he could never mix a song like Andy. You don't have the same ears. You don't have the same taste. So that's it. But there's a lot to be learned. A lot of these old school guys like Andy know a lot of tricks. You can get the playbook, but now you have to run the play. Very good, Jason. Any cases of production plagiarism? Nah. Knowing the secret does not give you the know-how. That's right, Martin. Yep. What's a guilty pleasure song for me? Guilty pleasure song. There's some Thomas the Train songs that I really like. There's some, I like the Terraria theme of the little video game Terraria. I really like, I love it when my kids sing it, and I love to hear it. It's so catchy. I can't, there's this little thing that my daughter Lennon used to use, a little thing that she'd stand up with and walk around with like a little. It was like a little walker thing when you learn how to walk, and it had some really catchy songs on it. And I would things that I would kind of go over and move the thing so it would play the song on purpose, and I don't know why. There's just some of these kids' songs get stuck in my head, and I like to hear them. There's some Dora songs I used to love too. Yeah. So I have a lot of guilty pleasure things like that, you know. I love a good melody. Yes, Terraria's soundtrack is their theme is amazing. That when an audio mixer or video editor for TV is really chosen for his or her taste, it's exactly right. Thank you, Brett. Appreciate that. I don't know why that popped into my head, Thomas the Tank Engine, Red Pill. I just, I thought of guilty pleasure, and I wish my kids still liked watching that those episodes, because they were so fun, really fun. I liked all three. I liked all three people. I liked who they have. They had George Carlin. No, they had, was it George Carlin? They had Ringo. They had Alec Baldwin and George Carlin. Were the three amazing people for Thomas the Tank Engine. I mean, that's unbelievable. Who are my favorite mixers now? You know, I'd have to, I'd have to think about that. My favorite mixers now. Most of the stuff I've been listening to right now has been a lot of new jazz albums I'm listening to. So I haven't been listening to a lot of pop or rock lately. One thing I've been noticing though is this is really interesting. So almost every jazz guitar player whose record I've been listening to, I listened to Adam Rogers. I listened to a couple of his records. I listened to the new Julian Lange. I listened to 3 or 4 jazz guitar records, contemporary jazz guitar records, and none of them have a sound that can touch Metheny. And I just don't think that they don't, as great a players as they are, they don't have the ear for. I don't think that they have the ear for the sound. They may play great notes. Dennis, what's up? They may play great notes, but like his sound he has a very similar sound to Metheny on Bright Slice Life, but it's not as good. So I don't think it sounds as good. And his guitar is way too low in the mix. Metheny did not use chorus. He did not. He used some very short delays, a 13 millisecond delay and a 16 millisecond delay. They had a little bit of modulation on them. And then he had a 400 to 500 millisecond delay in addition. So he had 3 different delays. What's up, Peter? No, you can't touch Metheny's tone. All those on those early records. I mean, I really got into his sound in one of my videos on his playing. I detailed it. And I showed pictures for all the people that don't believe me. It's like you can tell people stuff and then they're like, oh, well, that's not true. I read this, I read that. And it's like, yo, bro, look at the picture. You can see what he's using. It's right there. These fine pictures of these things. I saw him play a million times. I saw Matheny play back in the 70s. I saw his rig from, 3 feet away. I stood next to the stage. I got on stage. I saw his rig. I saw his 2 acoustic 134s. Chuck Loeb. You know what? I took a lesson with Chuck Loeb when I was in 1983. He's no longer with us. He was a nice guy. I think he just had his first kid, and he was living in New York. I still have a cassette of this. Chuck was such a nice guy. I saw him play at 7th Avenue South with Will Lee on bass, Bob Mincer on bass clarinet, not sax, bass clarinet. Chuck on guitar. I forget who was on drums now. It was an amazing band, unbelievable band. And I took one lesson from Chuck. I don't know how I got in touch with him. I don't know how that worked. I don't know how you could get in touch with people back then. Maybe I talked to him after the show, I think it was what it was. And he said, he might have been in Steps Ahead, Stephen, for a short period of time. So I took a lesson in his, I can remember it. Payphone? Might have been payphone. I mean, money, right? I mean, what? How did you call people? How did I have his phone number? He gave me his phone number maybe and I called him? I can't remember now. I'm sure I have the tape. I'm sure I have the cassette with him on it, with him and I playing. Anyways, okay. I've been on way too long here. What's a payphone? Nice, Miles. I know. What is a payphone, right? They used to be all over the place. You guys are great. This video is probably going to get taken down because I got a lot of copyright strikes on it, but you guys were here and boom. You guys are the best.